Universal Love, it's it's the last hurrah. It is the last hurrah for that first era of Philadelphia International when they just could not miss, when everything they touched turned to gold. What's going on, everybody? You're right on time for another ride on the Groove Line with your host, Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you guys had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, you were able to cool off after all of this smoke and heat and all of the foolishness. But anyway, it's MFSB Monday, and we're going to talk about the third album that MFSB put out as a collective. And that, of course, is 1975's Universal Love. This was one of two albums MFSB released in 1975, and we'll talk more about why that's important in a minute. But you get the picture of this lovely sort of album cover with the flowing letters MFSB Universal Love and roses flying in the water, and the sun in the background. I don't know if it's sunset or not, but whoever drew this drew a pretty rosy, pardon the pun, cover of what was going on in Philadelphia International at the time. I talked about this on an episode last year, how MFSB's original cast, the characters, split when they realized they weren't getting the money that they deserved from Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, who were running Philadelphia International at the time. So we're going to stick to just the music for these next two albums. I mean, honestly, after this, it really kind of tails off. After 75, the MFSB album is just sort of kind of like, I mean, well, not really. I mean, Summertime is still good. We'll get to Summertime a little later on down the line. But Universal Love, it feels like this is when MFSB, Philadelphia International, Philadelphia Soul as a whole really hit their stride. I mean, you could say that about Love is the Message because of Soul Train and the TSOP and the title track. But Universal Love, to me, it's my favorite MFSB album, number one. Let me make that clear. It's my favorite. But I think it's the one where everybody was on the same page in terms of cohesion. You had Bobby Martin doing the arrangements. Of course, he's one of the more unsung people when it comes to Philly soul and 70s soul in general. Um, Kenny and Leon actually delegated a lot of the songwriting to other people. I mean, there's songs from Bruce Halls. There's Cynthia Biggs making her debut as a Philadelphia International songwriter on Love Has No Time or Place. There is, Leon Huff doing stuff with Bobby Martin. They did something called Human Machine. Now, Human Machine, it's an interesting song because I don't think it has any particular rhyme or reason. I think this is just Bobby and Leon experimenting with a different kind of sound. I mean, the strings are still there. But the rest of it is just really kind of like sort of like robotic. I guess that's why they call it Human Machine. But I mean, it's one of the ones in the Philadelphia International catalog that you kind of forget about, but you listen to it, it's like, okay, I see they're going for something a little different here. But the entire album, I mean, the mood is party. It starts off with Sexy, which of course was written by Kenny and Leon, and it is a very sexy instrumental. My favorite part is the chorus when the horns go dun 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 dun. That's a Zach Zachary saxophone on the chorus as well. And MFSB, the song that was named after the group, is just really, really, you know, 70s disco dramatic, especially when the horns kick in at the end. Ba, 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 ba. And of course, Zach on the saxophone, just absolutely incredible. And the song that sort of makes me laugh, even though I know it's not supposed to be funny, is Let's Go Disco. Now, this was Kenny, Leon, Gene McFadden, John Whitehead, Victor Carr Starfin Sr., and Carrie Gilbert, who of course had a hand in writing Me and Mrs. Jones. So apparently all these dudes just got in the studio and figured, let's make a song about going to go to a party. Let's go disco. Let's go disco. I mean, because you get that sense, you listen to this song, like these are dudes that are literally, getting dressed up, in their leisure suits and different things, combing out the froze and whatnot, and then they hit the streets, let's go disco. And I mean, it's not really memorable, but I just find it, I mean, I just always pictured them writing that song like they were going to a party. And I guess that's the point of Philadelphia International at that point in time, especially MFSB, is that they wanted to have the party vibe. And it's no more evident on that than Let's Go Disco. Now, TLC, Tender Love and Care. That is my favorite song on the album. I was gonna say the best. I don't know if that's the, matter of fact, it's not the best. But "Tender Love and Care" is a very sweet song. It's more Bobby Martin strings and horns, perfectly arranged, and it starts off with sort of like a jazz vibe because you got Zach's saxophone sounding like this is probably going to be some sort of like torch song. But then Earl Young's drums kick in, Bobby Eli's guitar really gets to percolating, and then it just and the background singers and the Sweethearts of Signal were not on this album, believe it or not. They weren't even on Love Has No Time or Place. Shirley Brewer led the background vocalist on Love Has No Time or Place. But I don't know who's doing Tender Love and Care. Actually, it might be the Sweethearts. I should have asked Carla before I recorded this episode. My bad. But yeah. Tender, tender, tender love and care. Like that's all they say in the song. Do 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 do. Zach's song, and it's so funny because there's this part where they go do 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 do, and then Zach's saxophone just comes like bing, do 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 do. Love and care. It's it's a wonderful song. It's a wonderful song. But the showstopper, of course, is going to be KG. Now, KG was originally recorded by the Nite-Liters, and the Nite-Liters eventually became the New Birth when they merged with a vocal group from Detroit, which was led by Leslie Wilson. God rest his soul. Rest in peace to Leslie Wilson. But the Nite-Liters version of KG, it really sounds sort of like, because I mean, it sounds like it was cut in 1971, which it was. Early 70s, you still had like the Chitlin Circuit, soul food restaurant vibe. The version that MFSB cuts of KG is absolutely what it was intended to be and what it was eventually become a huge part of Saturday Night Fever soundtrack and movie. And I mean, it just literally is, sort of like you see the club. I mean, you see that movie and you see the scene where the Latin couple is dancing to this. They're getting a little salsa on and all of that. And it's like, yeah, I get what MFSB was going for. They predicted pretty much that what disco was going to become. I mean, the disco had already started in '75. Be honest with you, but by that point, Saturday Night Fever had kind of like, sort of been like a lampoonish, I don't want to say lampoon the disco culture, but it definitely was the artifact that when people talk about disco, when you talk about movies and television and all of that, that's what they go to. They go to Saturday Night Fever. I said Saturday Night Live. Oh my God, I'm at Saturday Night Fever. I'm sorry, but yeah, people usually go to Saturday Night Fever, if they want to be like, put up the speed on disco, which I don't think is fair to disco or the movie. Because I mean, I get it. John Travolta, it's his breakout role as a Vinnie Barbarino. No, Vinnie Barbarino was on Welcome Back, Kotter. But yeah, John Travolta's breakout role as a movie actor, is what it was. It was a cheesy, sort of seedy disco movie. But yeah, the MFSB version of KG figures prominently into that movie, and you get the reason why. It's just it's infectious, it's high rhythm, it's very high octane, and it's so fun. I mean, the Nite-Liters version, it starts off the same way. It starts off with the horns though. The horns go dun 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 dun, but there's a keyboard on the MFSB version. Boom, 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 boom. I think that's Lenny Pecula. It might be Leon Huff. Not sure, but there's no mistaking Ronnie Baker's bass. Boom, 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 boom. Like that is one of the funkier bass lines disco ever put together. I mean, disco was built around funky bass lines, and Earl Young's Four on the Floor, obviously. But the MFSB version of KG is very high octane, very, get up and go. I mean, the Nite-Liters version isn't very slow either, but it's still very early 70s ish. MFSB version is definitely 75 to 79. Make no mistake about it. And of course, we've talked about My Mood already. I did an entire episode about My Mood, but that is still just one of my favorite songs ever recorded by anybody. Of course, because I heard it so much growing up as a kid and as an adult, listening to Tony Brown on the Quiet Storm. And when I mean, it's so funny that it took me until well into adulthood to find out what that instrumental was because I hadn't really dug into the MFSB's catalog as of yet. But when I found out that MFSB had done My Mood. That was one of the songs that Kenny and Leon had wrote for the album, and they decided to close with that. I always found that interesting. You've been partying pretty much for 35, 45 minutes. And you end it with this very sweet, soft, and mellow, sort of laissez faire track. And for me, My Mood is still probably one of the more important instrumentals and probably one of the better instrumentals that MFSB and Philadelphia International ever put out, just because of what it meant to the area. Those of us who grew up listening to Tony Brown on The Quiet Storm on WDAS FM. I already mentioned it on that previous episode about Jim Vance using it when he was the news anchor for NBC4 in Washington, D.C. That instrumental just spoke to a few generations of Black people. And I still miss hearing it. I mean, Tony died in 2021, and Ademu Cologne, God bless him for trying to step in the shoes, has not used it yet. I miss hearing that. I miss hearing that when Tony was going to commercial break. 105.3 WDAS-FM. Once again, the magic feels good. Thank God for bringing us together again. I'm Tony Brown in the choir. Oh, the memories. The memories. They'll never fade as long as I'm still breathing. But yes, Universal Love was a really, really good album. It hit number 2 on the R&B charts. It hit top 50-ish on the pop charts. But again, this is around the time that Earl Young, Norman Harris, and Ronnie Baker were like, yo, where's our money? And a lot of other people of MFSB felt the same way. It's just that Baker, Harris, and Young were big enough to leave, because Earl Young had already started the Tramps by this time. And, Ronnie Baker and Norman Harris were already getting outside production work. They were heavy on the Whispers Bingo album, which was very underrated, by the way. That's why the Whispers have such a strong following here in Philly, and people still want to see them, even though Walter's no longer with us, because they did 2 albums here, by the way. They did Bingo and One for the Money. So they did 2 albums in Philly, and they were very much loved for those 2 albums. So whenever the Whispers come to Philly, people turn out. Absolutely. I'm going to try and get to see them this summer as well, up at the Dell. Universal Love, it's the last hurrah. It is the last hurrah for that first era of Philadelphia International, when they just could not miss, when everything they touched turned to gold. We talking about Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes going from a lounge act to one of the biggest groups in the world. We're talking about the OJs, who were regional geniuses, regional icons, but then went national. We're talking about Billy Paul, a jazz singer who became, a male sex symbol on par with Marvin Gaye at that time. And you've got all of this going for you, but Kenny and Leon just didn't feel like MFSB players had earned a raise. And that would backfire eventually. Not immediately, but eventually it did. But yeah, yes. This is, if you really want to get a glimpse of just how good MFSB was at their peak and how much the drop off was after those core guys left, listen to Universal Love. You'll understand it completely and wholly. And that's going to do it for this edition of MFSB Monday here on the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate you wonderful people for tuning in. As always, contact information will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell so you're notified of all the new videos that drop on this channel. And don't forget to like and comment on these videos, because as you know by now, your boy talks back in the comments. So thank you guys for riding with us on the Groove Line. And until the next time we ride, let's have a good week, y'all. May you find the groove, or may the groove find you.